Ready to learn how to complete a medical note? Let's get started. Click on the Notes desktop. From here, click Add Note. Begin by selecting your client. Your security settings will determine the clients displayed in the drop-down list. You may only see clients that have been assigned to you as opposed to all of the clients your agency serves. You can verify this setting by going to Options and seeing if the Assigned Clients Only box is checked. If this box is checked and you do not see the name for which you need to write a note for, the client will need to be added to your roster under the Employees desktop. Additionally, your cost centers will also dictate the clients that are visible. You may need to check the additional cost centers in order to see all of the clients. If you are using the system to schedule your services, then you should be creating your notes from the scheduled events. Doing so will ensure that the units flow correctly in the system and can accurately be counted. It is important to understand that your unit count will be very inflated if you have scheduled events that are not pulled into the note. Please be sure to understand how your agency intends to use the schedule with the notes. To create the note from the schedule, open the Schedule drop-down field. Select the record that matches the service and date of the note to be created. Once the scheduled record is selected, confirm that all populated fields are correct, editing where necessary if applicable. Based on your company settings, you may or may not be able to change any of the fields other than start time and end time. If your services are not being scheduled in the program, then skip over the Schedule field and select the service date by clicking on the calendar icon. Next, select the authorized service that was provided. Each service is associated with the end date of the authorization. You will not be able to write a note after the end date listed. After selecting the service, notice the service unit utilization graph that appears in the right-hand corner of the screen. Hover your mouse over any color on the graph to see the corresponding unit count. In this example, we only have in-process units. In-process units reflect all units that are tied up in the system but not yet billed. These units could consist of time entered on the schedule or time against an approved note that has not been billed. If the authorized units had been entered for this service, you would see the total amount of units remaining based on what is in process. Further, if there were billed units for this service, you would see the amount of units that have been billed in blue. The template field should auto-populate to medical note based on the service selection. If medical note is not auto-populated, open the drop-down and be sure to select that option. Your company may have renamed the template to read as something other than medical note. Enter in the start time and the end time for the service provided. If start time and end time are not visible, then enter the total duration worked in the duration field. It is either one or the other based on your company settings for that service. When using start time and end time, be sure to add your AMs and PMs. As a tip, you may enter A for AM or P for PM. Your name will auto-populate in the caregiver field. There should be no reason to change this as you are the caregiver who is documenting the service. The supervisor name will also auto-populate. You can change the name if need be when who has auto-populated is not the actual supervisor responsible for reading and approving your note. Now that all of the required fields have been entered, you may hit Save at any time. The medical note template includes the following fields: client, date of birth, date of service, length of service, service, and the vital statistic information, height, weight, and BMI. You may then customize the template to further capture the information needed for medical documentation. As an example, you can see that this medical note has been modified to include custom fields that capture various types of information. This has all been done through various types of fields, including long text fields, short text fields, date, and number fields. You will have the capability of adding any field that is necessary for your medical documentation. That can be done under the Configure desktop by going to Configure, Customization, and Custom Fields. To learn more about that process, please see the video titled Customizing Notes. The medical note is the only template that includes a Vital Statistics tab. As previously stated, the vitals are one of the fields formatted to print to the medical note. The vitals can be directly added at this tab at the time of documenting the service, or they may also pull in from the client section if vitals are being maintained there. This is helpful when someone other than the note writer, usually an assistant to the practicing medical professional, is the one capturing the vitals but not inputting the clinical documentation, preventing duplicate entry onto the note. Let's take a look at how that works. The vitals can be entered under the client's desktop by double-clicking on the client and going to the medical section. In this case, we have vitals entered for both dates 3/28 and 4/1. If we go back to a note and review a note for 3/28, you will see that when going to the Vitals tab, the vitals that are entered under Clients are automatically displayed here. This prevents the duplicate data entry at both the Client section and the Note section. When you feel you have completed your documentation, the last step will be to sign the note. If you are both the caregiver and the supervisor of the note, you will do so by clicking Process. You will then have the option to sign the note and approve for billing. You may also see an approve for payroll flag. If so, check accordingly. You will be required to key in your password when signing the note to authenticate your signature. This is the same password that you use to log into the program. You may receive warning messages if there is anything systematically out of compliance with the note. The system will check to make sure that the following are in place. The caregiver certifications are up to date and not incomplete or expired. The client's consents are up to date and not incomplete or expired. There are enough units left on the service authorization. The time on the note does not overlap with another note, and that all required fields have been entered. You will have the choice to click Yes, continue processing, or No, cancel. Please review with your supervisor how you should handle these warning messages. You may reference your workflow chart to understand the status of your note as it moves through the life cycle in the program. This will help you understand if it has been approved for billing, approved for payroll, and whether or not it's been billed. Anytime a note is in the signed state, it cannot be edited. In order to edit it and put it back as a work in process, you must hit Process and unsign the note. You will find several tabs within each note. The Task tab is used for internal communication between the supervisor and the caregiver on the note. Typically, this is used when the supervisor cannot approve the note and needs to provide the caregiver with the needed corrections. The caregiver can then respond to the task and alert the supervisor when the task has been completed. You can learn more about that workflow in the Tasks video. We have already reviewed the Vital Statistics tab, and the History tab provides an audit trail with a timestamp of all actions taken on every save. Lastly, the DMS tab stores the electronic record of the note. Every time a note is signed and/or unsigned, a new electronic record is created. You can view the note by clicking on the green arrow. This is a sample of how the medical note could ultimately look. Again, this format could change based on the type of custom fields that you apply to your template. And this completes the video on how to complete a medical note.